Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry I'm not with you today. My daughter Elizabeth woke up this morning in tears with a really bad sore throat. I was not planning on being out today at all. However, it is what it is. Now, I tried to figure out how to stream live on YouTube. Yeah, I couldn't do that. So those of you who are masters at this, you'll have to help me figure it out because I couldn't do it. In any event, period one, I'm sorry I won't get this posted to you in time for you to do it live in class. But everybody else, you can either have someone go up and log in on my computer, my desktop computer. I don't know if that'll work. And broadcast onto the big screen and watch me live in class that way. Or it's not really live, but watch the video anyways. You know what I'm talking about. Or I will post the link on Schoology so that you guys can all individually put your headphones in and listen to this. I've been telling you I'm going to do this, and I was going to post videos for you later on anyways. I just didn't intend on not being there today. So we are going to pick up where we left off yesterday in class. Some classes are in different spots. So I'm going to start at the earliest spot. You can fast forward this. In the old book, or the book that has the red cover, I'm going to start on page 10, okay? In the new thick book with the black cover, it's page 9, all right? So we're going to start on the place where Paris says, it says, Paris, press turns on her, and what shall I say to them? That my niece and that my daughter and my niece, I discovered dancing like heathen in the forest. Okay, so I'm going to give you a second to find that place in your text. Okay, so again, it's page 8 towards, I'm sorry, very little sleep, and as you can tell, this is quite unexpected. So it's the top of page 10 in the book with the red cover. And it is page 9 in the new book, okay? So I'm going to give you a second to find your place. Remember that you're annotating for characterization, so that means that you should be paying attention to that STEAL acronym: speech, thoughts, effect on others, actions, looks, and what, effect on others, thoughts. Yeah, I think I got them. Sorry, if you can't tell, I'm a little bit tired. Okay, so here we go. We barely got into Act 1 in most classes yesterday, okay? And we saw that Tituba came in. We have Reverend Paris's niece, Betty, who's in a coma, okay? Tituba comes in, says, my Betty be hearty soon, right? In her Barbados accent. Paris gets, pissed and orders her out. Abigail comes in and says, dude, Uncle, you need to go down and talk to these people. They're talking witchcraft, okay? And we also know that the doctor, Dr. Griggs, by way of Susanna Walcott, has told us that Betty's sickness had nothing to do with anything medical, that he might look to unnatural causes, aka something supernatural that's causing her to be sick. So here we go. Top of page 10 in the red cover book, page 9 in the new book. Okay. All right. So Abigail says, go down. The parlor's packed with people, sir. I'll sit with him. Her. Maybe I need more coffee. Okay. So everyone should be following along with their finger and annotating. Again, it's time to get your space. Okay. Paris, in response to Abigail, says, and what shall I say to them? That my daughter and my niece I discovered dancing like heathen in the forest? Uncle, we did dance. Let you tell them I confessed it, and I'll be whipped if I must. But they're speaking of witchcraft. Betty's not witched. Abigail, I cannot go before the congregation when I know you have not opened with me. What did you do with her in the forest? When she, right here, congregation is basically another name for the church community. And the word opened in this case is been honest. All right. So Abigail's response is, We did dance, Uncle, and when you leaped out of the bush so suddenly, Betty was frightened, and then she fainted, and there's the whole of it. Paris says, Child, sit you down. Abigail, quavering, which means shaking, as she sits. I would never hurt Betty. I love her dearly. Now look, you child, your punishment will come in its time. But if you trafficked or messed around with spirits in the forest, I must know it now, for surely my enemies will, and they will ruin me with it. But we never conjured spirits. Then why can she not move herself since midnight? This child is desperate. It must come out. My enemies will bring it out. Let me know what you have done there. Abigail, do you understand that I have many enemies? I have heard of it, Uncle. There is a faction. It's your vocab word, right? A group of people in the community. There is a faction that has sworn to drive me from my pulpit. Do you understand that? I think so, sir. Okay. Pulpit is the large, stand that's raised above, I guess the main place in the church, but it's where the minister or priest or whomever will stand literally above the people. Okay, and so one other thing too, if you go up the page a little bit, Abigail says we never conjured spirits. Okay, conjured means like summoned or called them, right? Communicating with the dead. All right. So if you look now, Paris is going to say, right, my enemies, they're all going to ruin me, okay? So he's very concerned with what other people are thinking. Paris is very concerned with his reputation, okay? And the way that you know this is because the word enemies has been repeated several different times here, okay? So Paris now says, now then, in the midst of such disruption, my own household is to be discovered to be the very center of some obscene practice. Abominations are done in the forest. It were sport, Uncle. It was just fun. It was all joking. So Paris points at Betty. You call it sport? Abigail, if you know something that may help the doctor, for God's sake, tell it to me. I saw Tituba waving her arms over the fire when I came on you. Why was she doing that? And I heard a screeching and gibberish coming from her mouth. She were swaying like a dumb beast over that fire. Well, she always sings her Barbados songs, and we dance. I cannot blink what I saw, Abigail, for my enemies will not blink it. Blink, ignore. I saw a dress lying in the grass. A dress? A dress. And I thought I saw someone naked running through the trees. No one was naked. You mistake yourself, Uncle. I saw it! Now tell me true, Abigail, and I pray you feel the weight of truth upon you. For now my ministry, my career, my ministry is at stake. My ministry and perhaps your cousin's life. Whatever abomination or terrible thing you have done, give me all of it now. Tell me the whole story, for I dare not be taken unaware when I go before them down there. There is nothing more, I swear it, Uncle. So he studies her. Abigail, I forgot. I fought here 3 long years to bend these stiff-necked people to me. He's talking about the people of Salem. And just now, when some good respect is rising for me in the parish, you compromise my very character. I have given you a home, child. I have put clothes upon your back. Now give me upright answer. Tell me the truth. Your name in the town. It is entirely white, is it not? Why, I am sure it is, sir. There be no blush about my name. Now, when he's talking about name, we're talking about reputation, okay? And so this is kind of important to annotate here. Arthur Miller, our author, uses some specific language and word choice here to make we, the readers, know what he's talking about, okay? So I want you to circle or put a star by this whole thing about your name, okay? And when he talks about it being white, the name being white means that her reputation is clean, okay? So when you think of white, you think of purity, you think of cleanness. okay? But then she says, oh no, there be no blush about my name. Think about what color blush is, like pink, red. There's no stain on my name or my reputation. But listen to what Paris has to say. Paris now says to the point, Abigail, is there any other cause than you have told me for your being discharged from Goody Proctor's service? I have heard it said, and I tell you as I heard it, that she comes so rarely to the church this year, for she will not sit so close to something soiled. What signified that remark? She hates me, uncle. She must, for I would not be her slave. It's a bitter woman, a lying, cold, sniveling, or whiny woman, and I will not work for such a woman. Well, she may be, and yet it has troubled me that you are now 7 months out of their house, and in all this time no other family has ever called for your service. They want slaves, not such as I. Let them send to Barbados for that. I will not black my face for any of them. And do you begrudge my bed, uncle? Do you resent giving me housing? No, no. My name is good in the village. I will not have it said my name is soiled. Goody Proctor is a gossiping liar. Now, before we go on, what other words can you think of here that he's using to give us an image of our friend here, Abigail? When I tell you something is soiled, you automatically think you should have said dirty, right? Okay? So let's backtrack. Abigail used to work kind of like as a servant, maid slash kind of a nanny, right? Back in Salem, if you were an unmarried woman, you didn't have a whole lot of options for work. So someone would hire you in their house to be a servant, take care of the kids, blah, blah, blah. So you got to live there for free. You got your room and board, and they paid you like a little bit. Not a lot, okay? But you had a place to live. Now, we have learned that Miss Abigail has gotten fired from the Proctor household, okay? Now, why do we think she got fired? Some people are like, oh, maybe she just wasn't a good nanny. Perhaps. However, in the 7 months that she has been fired, not one single family in this small community has hired her. So, we also learn that Goody Proctor, the wife, won't come to church because she doesn't want to sit next to something, aka Abigail, so soiled or dirtied. So when I tell you, what do you think of when I tell you a certain girl is dirty? Now keep that in mind as to why she got fired, okay? And why no one else will hire her. Because girls and women, especially wives in a small community, they talk. So what's the one main reason somebody who got fired wouldn't be hired in another wife's house? Keep that in mind. Okay, so Abigail, though, says, whatever, she's just gossiping. Back to the book. Paris, Abigail says, my name is good in the village. Okay, and now we're going to look at the stage directions that say, enter Mrs. Ann Putnam. So you should draw a box around her name, and you're going to underline your characterization here, okay? Make your little stick figure guy for your characterization, okay? Here we go. Enter Mrs. Ann Putnam. She is a twisted soul of 45, a death-ridden woman haunted by dreams. Paris then says, right, as soon as the door opens, he's like, oh, no, I cannot have anyone. But then he sees her and he's like, changes his mind. Why, Goody Putnam, come in. Mrs. Putnam says, it is a marvel. It is surely a stroke of hell upon you. A marvel is like a sign, okay? Paris says, no, Goody Putnam, it isn't. She looks at Betty. How high did she fly? How high? No, she never flew. Why, sure she did. Mr. Collins saw her going over Ingersoll's barn and come down light as a bird, he says. Now look you, Goody Putnam, she never. Enter Thomas Putnam. So here's another box for your characterization. a well-to-do, aka wealthy, rich, hard-handed landowner near 50. And look at how Paris, his line changes. Soon as Thomas Putnam comes in, or just in the book they refer to him as Putnam, okay? So he comes in, "Oh, good morning, Mr. Putnam. It is a providence. The thing is out now. It is a providence." If you look at the vocab lists on your bookmark, a providence is like a sign from God, okay? Like a sign. Okay. Paris says, "What's out, sir? What?" Mrs. Putnam goes to bed. Putnam looks at Betty and says, "Why, her eyes is closed. Look you, Ann." Mrs. Putnam says, "Why, that's strange. Ours is open." "Your Ruth is sick?" "I'd not call it sick. The devil's touch is heavier than sick. It's death, you know. It's death driving into them forked and hoved." "Oh, pray not. How does Ruth ail? What's wrong with Ruth? How is she sick?" Okay, so Ruth is obviously the Putnam's daughter, about the same age as Betty. So now we got a girl in a coma and another girl who's sick. Okay, Mrs. Putnam says, "Oh, she ails as she must. She never waked this morning, but her eyes open, and she walks, and hears not, sees not, and cannot eat. Her soul is taken surely." So Ruth Putnam is almost like in a trance. She walks around. She doesn't see anything. She doesn't hear anything. She doesn't eat. But she's got that creepy trans look on her face. Right? Oh. Okay. So Paris is struck. He is shocked and in awe. And then Putnam on the bottom asked Paris, "They say you've sent for Reverend Hale of Beverly." Paris says, "A precaution only. He has much experience in all demonic arts, and he has indeed, and found a witch in Beverly last year, and let you remember that. Now, Goody Ann, they only thought that were a witch, and I'm certain there be no element of witchcraft here." "Ha! No witchcraft? Now look you, Mr. Paris, Thomas, I pray you not, leave not to witchcraft. I know that you least of all, Thomas, would ever wish so disastrous or horrible a charge laid upon me." Right? Again, what's Paris concerned about? Himself, his reputation. "We cannot leap to witchcraft. They will howl me out of Salem for such corruption in my house." Okay, they will throw me out. Okay, and now, you see where there's the space, and we switch into these chunks of paragraphs. Remember, this is like Arthur Miller walking onto the stage and telling you, the audience, something a little bit about this Thomas Putnam, the real dude in real life and the character in the play, okay? So I picture him coming in with his little beret, and he says, "A word about Thomas Putnam." Lots of characterization here. "He was a man with many grievances," okay? So grievances, complaints, okay? "At least one of which appears justified. Some time before, his wife's brother-in-law, James Bailey, had been turned down as minister of Salem. Bailey had all the qualifications and a 2/3 vote into the bargain, but a faction stopped his acceptance for reasons that are not clear. Thomas Putnam was the eldest son of the richest man in the village." Okay, so there's some characterization. Dude's rich. Comes from a rich family. "He had fought the Indians at Narragansett and was deeply interested in parish or village affairs. He undoubtedly felt it poor payment that the village should so blatantly disregard his candidate for one of its more important offices, especially since he regarded himself as the intellectual superior to most of the people around him, aka thinks he's smarter than everybody else." And when they're talking about a candidate for minister, okay, they're talking about, remember, the minister is almost like the mayor or the community leader of the town, because who makes all the laws? The church, okay? So obviously he wants his brother-in-law to be elected, because then, he'll have an in with the government. Okay, so this is 1, 2, third paragraph down. Okay? It says, his, Thomas Putnam's, vindictive, vocab word, which means revengeful, His vindictive nature was demonstrated long before the witchcraft began. Another former Salem minister, George Burroughs, had to borrow money to pay for his wife's funeral. And since the parish was remiss in his salary, aka the village, forgot to pay him, he was soon bankrupt. Thomas and his brother John had Burroughs jailed for debts the man did not owe. So poor bastard couldn't pay for his wife's funeral. Putnam, what a jerk, right? The incident is important only in that Burroughs succeeded in becoming minister, where Bailey, Thomas Putnam's brother-in-law, had been rejected. Now please underline this. The motif of resentment is clear here. Thomas Putnam felt that his own name and the honor of his family had been smirched or stained and dishonored by the village, and he meant to right matters however he could. So I want you to annotate in the margins right here that Putnam has a motive, M-O-T-I-V-E, for revenge, okay? This little incident shows us that he wants revenge against people in Salem because he felt rejected. Next paragraph. Another reason to believe him a deeply embittered, bitter man was his attempt to break his father's will, which left a disproportionate amount to his stepbrother. As with every other public cause in which he tried to force his way, he failed in this. So it is not surprising to find that so many accusations against people are in the handwriting of Thomas Putnam, or that his name is so often found as a witness corroborating the supernatural testimony, or that his daughter led the crying out at the most opportune junctures of the trials, especially when, but we'll speak of that when we come to it. Okay, now imagine, Arthur Miller walks on the stage, and the actors now go back to what they're doing, okay? So Putnam says, at the moment he is intent upon getting Paris, for whom he has only contempt, which means hatred, to move toward the abyss. Mr. Paris, I have taken your part in all contention here. Contention, arguments. And I will continue. But I cannot if you hold back in this. There are hurtful, vengeful spirits laying hands on these children. But Thomas, you cannot. Anne! Tell Mr. Paris what you have done. Reverend Paris, I have laid 7 babies unbaptized in the earth. And believe me, sir, you never saw more hearty babies born. Hearty, healthy. And yet, each would wither in my arms the very night of their birth. I have spoke nothing, but my heart has clamored intimations. Intimations are like hints or suggestions. And now this year, my Ruth, my only, I see her turning strange. A secret child she has become this year, and shrivels like a sucking mouth. We're pulling on her life, too, like she's been sick. And so I thought to send her to your Tituba. To Tituba. What made Tituba? Tituba knows how to speak to the dead, Mr. Paris. Goody Anne! It is a formidable sin to conjure up the dead. I take it on my soul. But who else may surely tell us what person murdered my babies? Woman! They were murdered, Mr. Paris. And mark this proof. Mark it. Last night, my Ruth were ever so close to their little spirits. I know it, sir, for how else is she struck dumb now except some power of darkness would stop her mouth? It is a marvelous sign, Mr. Paris. Don't you understand it, sir? There is a murdering witch among us, bound to keep herself in the dark. Paris turns to Betty, a frantic terror rising in him. Let your enemies make of it what they will. You cannot blink it more. You cannot ignore it. Oh, then he says to Abigail, then you were conjuring spirits last night. Not I, sir. Tituba and Ruth. Now, oh, Abigail, what proper payment for my charity. Now I am undone. To recap here, Mrs. Putnam says that she gave birth to 7 kids, 7 babies, right? And before she even had the chance to have them baptized, they all died. within her arms, okay? They withered. They died. Her only living child, Ruth, is now sick. So she believes there's some reason, well, hold on, backtrack. So Tituba, she sends Ruth to go to Tituba. This is what they were supposedly doing in the forest, right? To conjure up the spirits of her dead, murdered babies, all right? To find out who it was who murdered them all, okay? And of course, you're not supposed to conjure. That's why Paris is like, oh, it's a formidable sin. And she's like, whatever. Somebody murder my babies. Okay? Pretty nuts. Okay? So now they're convinced there's someone in the community who's a witch and who's responsible for murdering the 7 babies and now making Ruth sick. Okay? So, of course, Paris is like, oh, that's it. I'm out. They're going to throw me out. I'm undone. Putnam is going to say, you are not undone. Okay, so everybody find that spot. Let's be waiting for you to find the spot. You are not undone. Let you take hold here. Wait for no one to charge you. Declare yourself. You have discovered witchcraft in my house? In my house, Thomas? They will topple me with this. They'll bury me with this information. They will make of it a... Enter Mercy Lewis. Box characterization. The Putnam servant, a fat, sly, merciless girl of 18. Your pardons. I only thought to see how Betty is. Why aren't you home? Who's with Ruth? Her grandma come. She's improved a little, I think. She give a powerful sneeze before. Ah, there's a sign of life. I'd fear no more, Goody Putnam. It were a grand sneeze. Another like it will shake her wits together, I'm sure, right? You're sneezing out the evil spirits. Now Paris says, oh, will you leave me now, Thomas? I would pray a while alone. Uncle, you've prayed since midnight. Why do you not go down and... No. I have no answer for that crowd. I'll wait till Mr. Hale arrives. And then to get Mrs. Putnam to leave, he says, oh, if you will, Goody Ann. Now look you, sir, says Mr. Putnam. Let you strike out against the devil, and the village will bless you for it. Come down, speak to them, pray with them. They're thirsting for your word, mister. Surely you'll pray with them. Paris then decides, okay, I'll lead them in a psalm. But let you say nothing of witchcraft yet. I will not discuss it. The cause is yet unknown. I have had enough contention since I came. I want no more. So he decides he's going to go down a psalm as like a short prayer that's sung, okay? Mrs. Putnam now says, Mercy, you go home to Ruth, do you hear? Aye, mum. Now Paris says to Abigail, if she starts to the window, cry for me at once. I will, uncle. There is a terrible power in her arms today. What is Paris suggesting? If Betty gets up and goes towards the window, call me, because maybe she wants to fly out. Okay? Again, pretty crazy. Now, everybody has left the room, all the adults. So now we just have Abigail, okay, and Mercy Lewis in with the sleeping Betty in a coma. So now Abigail, it says, in the red book, it should be on the top of page 18. It says Abigail with hushed trepidation. Okay, trepidation is kind of like you're a little scared. How is Ruth sick? It's weirdish, I know not. She seems to walk like a dead one since last night. Abigail turns at once and goes to Betty. And now with fear in her voice, Betty doesn't move. So she shakes her. Now stop this, Betty. Sit up now. Betty doesn't move. So Mercy comes over. Have you tried beating her? I gave Ruth a good one and it waked her for a minute. Here, let me have her. Abigail holds her back and says, No, he'll be coming up. Listen now. If they be questioning us, tell them we danced. I told him as much already. Aye, and what more? He saw you naked. Oh, Jesus. Enter Mary Warren. More characterization. Box a new name here. Breathless. She is 17, a subservient, naive, lonely girl. Subservient means she does what everybody tells her. Naive means she's gullible. Like she believes a lot of stuff, okay? Okay, so she comes up. Mary Warren, what'll we do? The village is out. I just come from the farm. The whole country's talking witchcraft. They'll be calling us witches, Abby. Mercy points and says, she means to tell, I know it. Abby, we've got to tell. Witchery's a hanging error. A hanging like they done in Boston 2 years ago. We must tell the truth, Abby. You'll only be whipped for dancing and the other things. Oh, we'll be whipped. Mercy then says, moving menacingly, which is kind of like evilly, towards Mary. Oh, you're a great one for looking, aren't you, Mary Warren? What a grand peeping courage you have. Now, Betty, on the bed, starts whimpering. Betty, Abigail says, and she goes to Betty. Now, Betty, dear, wake up now. It's Abigail. So she shakes her. Says, I'll beat you, Betty. And Betty whimpers, My, you seem improving. And I talked to your papa and I told him everything. So there's nothing to... Now Betty darts off the bed, frightened of Abigail, and flattens herself against the wall and says, I want my mama. Abigail, with alarm, says, What ails you, Betty? Your mama's dead and buried. I'll fly to mama. Let me fly. She raises her arms as though to fly and streaks for the window and gets one leg out. You're supposed to be in bed. Okay, but I'm reading to the students. No TV. Go lay down on the couch or back in your bed. Don't stare at me like that. Come on, I have to post this to them. Go lay down. Sorry. Okay. So Betty jumps out of bed, says she's going to fly to her mama, okay? And she literally gets one leg out of the window, and Abby pulls her back, okay? She says, I told him everything. He knows now. He knows everything You drank blood, Abby. You didn't tell him that. Betty, you never say that again. You will never. You did. You drank a charm to kill John Proctor's wife. You drank a charm to kill Goody Proctor. Abigail smashes her across the face. Shut it now. So she, bam, backhands him. Her, Betty. So Betty collapses on the bed and she's like, Mama. And she dissolves into sobs. Okay. And now Abigail says, this is like her big famous line, and now look you, all of you, we danced, and Tituba conjured Ruth Putnam's dead sisters, and that is all. And mark this, let either of you breathe a word, or the edge of a word, about the other things, and I will come to you in the black of some terrible night, and I will bring a pointy reckoning that will shudder you. And you know I can do it. I saw Indians smash my dead parents' heads on the pillow next to mine, and I have seen some reddish work done at night. And I can make you wish you had never seen the sun go down. She goes to Betty and sits her up and says, Now you, sit up and stop this. But Betty collapses in her hands and lies and they're on the bed again. Okay, Mary then says, What's got her? Mary's all scared. Okay, Abby, she's going to die. It's a sin to conjure. And I said, shut it, Mary Warren. And we will stop there for now. I will continue the rest when John Proctor comes in tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed this comical little video I made for you and that it was you were somewhat able to understand everything. Please make sure you have all your annotations done. And until next time, adios. Please be good for the sub.